On the night of the 29th of August 1791, Margaret Crozier was murdered in the old peel house called Berehyll. This is an account of the happenings surrounding this event. A month earlier, on the 29th of July 1791, Margaret, who ran a small drapery shop from her lodgings, was showing some stock to Elizabeth Jackson, when Jane Gregg entered, also known by the alias of Jane Douglas and Jane Clark the Elder, for her younger sister was also known by the same name. Elizabeth did not like the appearance of Jane Gregg and how she snooped around the room, but she left and did not return. The night before the murder, on the 28th of August 1791, it was here that at Huntlaw that Jane Gregg met with her two younger sisters and William Winter. It's unsure what was said that night, but the next day the two sisters and William Winter left with the purpose of robbing Margaret Crozier. On the 29th of August 1791, Robert Hindmarsh, an 11-year-old boy, left Huntlaw Farm to tend to the sheep. Hindmarsh observed Winter and the two Clark sisters resting in this sheepfold. Here he observed Winter using a gully knife to carve some cold mutton and some bread which they shared for their meal. There was nothing remarkable about the knife, except where the blade met the hilt. There was a band of iron soldered with brass to stop the handle splitting. As they were busy eating their meal, Winter started singing a song about the joys of being a shepherd boy. Hindmarsh, curious about the song and wanted to hear it better, crept closer, and in doing so, he noticed on the soles of Winter's boots there was an odd arrangement of nails hammered into the soles. Late on the morning of the 30th of August 1791, Margaret Drummond arrived at the house to make a purchase when she felt that something was amiss. So she sought out Elizabeth Jackson, who was with the joiner William Dodds. Both confirmed that they had seen nothing of Margaret that morning. Together they approached the house and found the door shut but not bolted. Nearby was a plough coulter. Inside they found the body of Margaret Crozier. Her throat had been cut, but not deep enough to have killed her. No, what had killed her was strangulation from a handkerchief that had been tied very tightly around her neck. One of her hands had been deeply cut, indicating that she had struggled with her assailant, and the gully knife was found among the bedclothes. The plough coulter had been used to lift the bolt on the door, and around the house were footprints with a strange configuration of boot nails. The place had also been robbed. The constables John Brown of Langshill, William Hall of Elston and William Tweedy of Hudspeth mounted their horses and gave pursuit. Not far from Horsley lies Whittledean. In a previous century, it was here where lay the hideout of the notorious Long Lonkin, the murderer of a mother and her baby at the nearby Welton Hall. A fitting place for the constables to catch up with Winter, hiding in some nearby bushes. John Brown approached him on horseback and arrested him without any resistance. Next they headed westwards in pursuit of the women. Two miles west of Ovingeham in Tynedale lies Bearl, once known as Berehyll, the Old English for Barley Hill. Here they happened on Jane Clark with her dog. At first she denied knowing Winter, but the dog's fondness for William betrayed her to the constables, and she too was arrested. On the 14th of September 1791, the constables returned to Bearl in order to arrest Eleanor Clark and Jane Gregg. The prisoners were first brought here to Netherwinton to be examined by the Justice of the Peace, W. Trevelyan, Esquire. But the gentleman in question was abroad, and in his absence they brought them before B. Mitford, Esquire, who was invested with the same authority. Upon examination of the evidence, he committed them to the county jail in Morpeth on Saturday, the 3rd of September 1791, where they would spend 11 months in solitary confinement. On the 14th of the same month, Trevelyan committed Eleanor Clark and Jane Gregg to the same jail. In the beginning of August 1792, Winter and the Clark sisters were brought here to Newcastle Keep, which was in those days used as a prison. Here they awaited trial. The present Moot Hall stands in the exact same spot as the old Moot Hall. It was here where the trial took place. It is said to have lasted 16 hours and was presided over by Trevelyan himself. Winter failed to help his case when he remarked that the bald and Trevelyan could use a wig. Jane Gregg was found not guilty and was released. Her two sisters, however, were less fortunate. Upon being sentenced to hang, Jane Clark fainted. Despite being in irons, Winter picked her up and carried her back to the keep, where they waited their fate. It was here on this very spot, outside the old West Gate, and in front of where the Waterloo Inn once stood, that scaffold was erected, and Jane Clark, Eleanor Clark and William Winter were publicly hanged in front of the baying crowds. All that is left of the Barber Surgeon Hall is the White Gardener's Cottage. The trains on the East Coast Main Line rumble over the road where once stood dissecting tables. It was here that the bodies of Jane and Eleanor Clark were brought. Fresh corpses for the surgeons to dissect provided better results than those robbed from the grave.
To their surprise, they found that Jane's maidenhood was still intact. How could one so pure be guilty of murder? But for William Winter's corpse, a different fate awaited.
Here at Stane Cross, William Winter's remains were gibbeted in the clothes in which he had been hanged. He was bound in iron and hanged from the scaffolding. Below is the remains of an old Anglo-Saxon cross. Over time, the body rotted. The stench was so bad that horses wouldn't even pass the place. Eventually, the bones dropped from their iron bands, and local shepherds buried them hereabouts. All except the skull. The skull was conveyed as a keepsake to Mr. Darnell, the proprietor of a mill where now stands New Mill Street. What became of the skull after that is no longer public knowledge. Maybe it's buried in St. Andrew's Church, along with the other victims of the hangman's noose. Or maybe it's just lost to history. Or perhaps Mr. Darnell's descendants still keep the skull as a curiosity on the mantelpiece.